God's power is seen in God's instruction. There's power in divine instructions. He said, you shall hear a voice behind you saying, go down this way. When God's instructions are obeyed, God's power is activated. You see his power in his instructions. If you want to enjoy God's power, then go for God's instruction. There is a level of walking with God that you hear God. The greatest voice of God I enjoy is not just the voice to prophesy, to tell somebody God said you are this, you are that, you will be blessed, you are this. The voice of God I celebrate, which I call the voice of personal making, is the voice that tells you what to do to avert or to settle certain matters. I like the voice that spoke to Isaiah to tell Ezekiah, but I love the voice that spoke to Abraham to sacrifice Isaac. Because the voice that told Abraham to sacrifice Isaac is the voice that has made up his mind to make Abraham a father of nations. That's why there are many prophets who have given sound prophecy to Ezekiah. They are still broke. Because all they hear is agree, God says. That they are yogu, God says. God stand, God says. They've never heard what God is telling them. As God rebuked you, as God instructed you. I remember I was in the Edo State, and then Papa and I were together, and Papa said, he said, son, get ready, get ready. We need to go somewhere, we need to go somewhere. I ran into one of the apartments in the house, and I got myself changed and gagged up. And then when I was ready, suddenly Papa went up and said, I want to put on something and let's move. As soon as he entered, the next thing, he sent a message and said, son, God said, where are you going to? I was expecting him to put on suit. He came out with tracksuit. When you love it and God demands it, is a sign that God has finally made up his mind to make you. My making in life and ministry is in the voice that places a demand on my Isaac. Sir, I have heard God told me, go and tell Ezekiah. In fact, if I have time now, maybe he will tell me about someone in this service. I love that one. God said I should tell you what happened so time. I love it. When Isaiah's dimension is upon you to talk to Ezekiah's. But I love when the voice of the Lord comes to you and said, my son, lovest thou me more than this? Feed my sheep. We have too many prophetic stingy prophets standing on the altar. All they hear is what puts ranking on their ego, is what people used to say, wow, if they see. There are many times you hear the voice of the Lord saying, son, you like it? You say yes, and drop it. When you get to that level, you enjoy God's power. When you hear they say Deuteronomy 8:18, I am the Lord that giveth thee power to make what? You know, the power is divine instruction. When you can hear God and obey God, that's how you enjoy God's abundance. God's abundance, the power of God is in his instructions. Jesus said to the 10 lepers, he said, go and what? Go and wash. The Bible says he didn't pray, go and wash. As they were going, what happened? They were restored. Restoration is in instruction. God's power is in instruction. What has God told you? What have you heard? What do you hear? God's power for what? It's not just in the prayer room, it's in the instruction room. Lord, talk to me. In Revelation 1:10, he said, I was in the spirit on the last day and heard behind me a great voice. Anytime you enter spirit, you go hear voice. When you enter spirit, you know hear voice. You never enter where? He said, I was in the spirit on the last day and I heard. Papa said one time, not once, not twice, he was worshiping God over something that came, and the Lord called him Johnson, my prophet. He said, give it to me. He said he began to bind the voice. Can I shock you? When God wants to make you play with it, he tests you with it. When God wants to make Abraham a father of nations with many children for him, wants to make Sarah a mother of nations. You know what God said to him? He said, your children shall be like the sand in the seashore. God knows he will play with it. So God tested him with it. Many times God has tested you with money because he wants you to play with money. But you valued money more than him. How do you survive? Key flesh. The reason why people can't thank God enough is that they think it's by their power that they are where they are. You just thought that you are alive now by your power. You just thought that business is working by your tactics. Yeah. I wish you meet a counselor by the junction who will tell you it's not by power, not by might, but by my spirit. I have a principle. All I have is thine. Yours I am and yours I always want to be. Do with me, Lord, whatever thou will. My wife knows that everything that is about me is God. If God talks, nobody talks. Everybody obeys. Why? Because he brought it in the first place. If he who brought it places a demand, can I say something in the school of wisdom? God is not a murderer. God is not wicked. God has no reduction in his principles. When God says kill Isaac, is God becoming a murderer suddenly? Can't you learn wisdom that it was a test, not that God wanted to kill?
Yes.
Imagine Abraham, they follow God, drag what God bring. Say, give me thy son, thy only son, Isaac. And Abraham will say, Lord, no be here. You know, see him. He that seated in heaven, Psalm 2, will do what? Just laugh. It's a small picking. It's like a child you bought something for, and you are telling the child, share with me. The child, when God's instructions are obeyed, God's power is activated.